Oh, yes. And talking to 4 different accountants in an evening, yes.
All right, why don't we begin? Ms. Halpin, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
Welcome. Thank you for your patience. I think you were one of the first to arrive and the last one to be asked in. So I want to welcome you, Lowell. We'll give you an opportunity to make some opening remarks if you'd like, and then we'll begin questioning with Councilor Ramirez to my right here. Okay.
I'd like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I've been an accountant for over 30 years. I started out as a French teacher and migrated to accounting 3 years after I started teaching. I had always wanted to be an accountant. My father, the CPA, said, "Oh no, don't go into accounting, you'll be happier as a teacher." I've enjoyed doing accounting, and I've had I feel a good background for being the city auditor for Lowell. I've spent 13 years in the Massachusetts financial systems with the town of Brookline. And prior to that, I was with 2 nonprofits, one an independent school, the other a college, and also have some industry experience. So I feel that I bring a lot to the table, and just welcome your questions.
Thank you very much.
Judy, thank you for coming here tonight, and looking forward to listening to you and having you give us some ideas on the city and your background. And I guess I would start off by asking the $64 million question, which is, why do you want to be the auditor in the city of Lowell?
Lowell, I believe, presents some challenges that I currently don't see in my current position. Brookline is a fairly wealthy community, and we enjoy we're able to draw on a lot of staff that have gone through colleges in the Boston area. So I've got a strong staff, and it's actually become too easy. And it may sound strange as an accountant to want challenges, but we do. Mm-hmm. We want to be able to do things in a way that, particularly in government accounting, stays within the letter of the law, but that allows some creativity in helping to find solutions for a community.
What's the budget in Brookline? What's the size of the budget?
The general fund budget
Yes.
is around $190 million.
Okay, and what's the population?
59,000.
Okay. What's your current, are you an at-will employee or are you under contract?
We have annual contracts that are approved by the selectmen.
And may I ask what the current salary of that is?
I'm at 92,000.
92, okay. I assume that you would be willing to take a pay cut, because unless somebody corrects me, I think that is well beyond the advertised salary.
I'm spending 4 hours a day in the car commuting back and forth to Boston, to Brookline, and I would have a 25-minute commute from here. I've been waiting for a position to open in the Merrimack Valley that actually struck my fancy, and this is one that has. It's a wonderful community. You've got really the best of all worlds. You've got space for growth. In Brookline, we only can grow in the air because there's no land left. So that becomes a challenge when you're trying to find ways to improve your tax base. But here you do have some room for growth. You've got a rich cultural background. You've got a diverse community, which Brookline also has. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about Brookline that I would enjoy here, is there's such a rich cultural diversity here. You've got a strong immigrant population, but you also have a population, I'm sure, that's been here for 200 years. The family's been in the area for 200 or 300 years. And so you've got these really nice synergies going in the community. And I don't have to tell you, Lowell has taken, over the past 200 years, has taken a couple of economic hits as industry has changed. But you always seem to rise above it. And I think part of it has to do with the way the government works with the community.
Well, thank you for those kind words. We feel the same. What do you see as the most challenging aspect of the city auditor's job?
It's turning out a good product. For me, my product is my financial reports, whether it's to the state or to the feds, for grants, or whether it's the annual financial statements. And that can be a challenge. And it isn't much of a challenge right now at Brookline.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of these challenges, what do you do for professional development to keep you up to date with the computer, the principles of accounting and the management in the municipal regs?
Well, I do a lot of reading, first of all, and I attend the Massachusetts Government Finance Officers seminars, the national GFOA seminars when they're within a reasonable distance. We use Munis as our software, and I go to the Munis conference annually, which for me has two benefits. Not only do I learn what's coming, but it also is an opportunity to hold their feet to the fire in a public forum. When you've got, this year it was almost 3,000 people that are users of Munis, and you can stand up in a room and say, and why doesn't this work? Or when are you going to get this so that it works? I found that their relationship with me has been better from my side. It may not be from theirs, because they know I'm going to do that. I do some, if there's the junior colleges or the colleges in the area frequently offer in-service training type programs for accountants, and I attend those also.
My time has run out, but I look forward to hearing the rest of the interview. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Halpin. Welcome again. I don't want to be too basic here, but I think you're aware the planning form of government. The auditor reports to the council, although we do consider you a member of the finance team, if you will, but there is a certain check and balance role where we would expect to get, direct reports from you in the event there were a disagreement with the city manager. My question in all of that is, how does that work in the position you're in now? What's the role of the comptroller in Brookline? Who do you report to?
I report to the finance director, who is also the treasurer and collector for the town. He reports to the town administrator, but I also am regularly called upon by the selectmen to give financial reports. I report to the audit committee, which is independent of the town administrator and finance director. It's a committee of 5 that is run through the town moderator. The town moderator basically picks 3 of the positions. The finance committee has 1, and the school committee has 1, and the selectmen have 1 member on that committee.
So there's an independent audit committee.
Yes,
not from,
there
through,
is.
Through the town meeting structure.
Yes.
Similar to what the finance committee structure is.
In addition to the finance committee.
You're right.
Yeah.
But-
And then I also have to report to, we have an advisory committee that basically does their presentation of we have 2 budgets that are presented that hopefully become 1 before they make it to town meeting. The advisory committee, which is made up of members of the finance committee and the town meeting members, and then the selectmen develop a budget. It gets presented as 1 budget at town meeting, and frequently there are disagreements And the advisory committee will stand up and say, well, we actually don't believe that, the selectmen believe this. And so it's a lively debate.
Yeah, it sounds it. So what's the role of your office in that? Do you prepare in revenue projections?
I give them
or?
any information they want, and I basically in the budget process, we're making sure that no one overspends, that no one overcommits with contracts. I sign every requisition. I sign every purchase order. I review basically the summaries of every accounts payable batch, and I review the cash receipts to make sure that they're getting into the right buckets.
So I can imagine that in that process, the selectmen's budget or would rely on data from your office.
Yes.
What about the other group? Do they rely?
They also do, and they will frequently come and say, and the school committee presents their budget separately from the selectmen. So they will come to me and say, the school committee says this, what are the numbers? What are the real numbers? And they may want them cast in a different way. They may want to be looking at, instead of looking at a department's outside services, they may want to look at the outside services for all departments and how much those have changed in the past 5 years and what the projection is going to be, and does it make sense based on, I give them numbers.
Okay.
I give them what they want.
Okay.
They may not like the numbers, but they get what they ask for.
Okay. You mentioned Munis and your familiarity with Munis,
Yes.
and you've been in Brookline 12 years or
Yes.
so. So did you implement, were you there when Munis was implemented?
Yeah.
And what was your role in that?
I basically, because the general ledger is mine, I worked with our IT director at the time to basically make sure that everyone had technology that was at a level that they would be able to do Munis. We work in a decentralized environment, and that means that, and the school is a part of the town. So one of our big challenges with Munis was getting the school administrative offices off of Macintosh and onto PCs. Today we just completed the implementation of the newest version of Munis. And I work with IT on that, but it is my general ledger. And the security is basically driven through my office so that we have the right level of checks and balances, so that someone who authorizes an accounts payable can't get the check, so that someone who takes in cash over the counter isn't the one who makes the deposit. We have a set of checks and balances in place. On the grants, we're making sure that they're following the letter of the grant document so that the feds or the state don't come back and say, well, it's nice, but you spent that money late or you spent it wrong. We have to make sure that they spent it within the terms of the grant. We have 800 funds. A good number of them are trust funds for the schools. And those have terms of trust that we have to be sure that the school abides by when they're expending the funds, whether they're giving them as a scholarship or a gift, or whether they're going to let the funds sit for a couple of years to get enough money to actually give the type of gift they want to give to a graduating student.
Okay, thank you. I think I've exhausted my time, so go to Councilor Broderick at the other end.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Hoppin. I'm going to ask you the other $64,000 question is, why did you apply late?
I didn't find out about it until the Friday of Veterans Day.
Okay. And where did you see
I
it?
actually had someone from Munis mention to me that, did I know that Lowell
Okay.
was up? We were in the middle of town meeting apparently when the position was posted, and during the month before town meeting and the week of town meeting, I'm
Shut down?
shut
Locked
down pretty
yeah.
much.
Okay.
I'm not reading newspapers.
Okay. That's okay. Brookline is probably more affluent than Lowell. What percentage of the budget in Brookline is state funded? Do you know?
Very little. It's more on the school side.
Okay.
We have some CDBG funds, Community Development Block Grant, but they're not as substantial as yours.
Okay. But you're familiar with state funding and
Yeah.
federal funding? Okay. you've been asked about Munis and most of the big topics here. What would you see a relationship in Lowell in the planning form of government in the budget process? The manager brings a budget to the council to vote on, okay? And we rely on the information provided by the manager and, in my opinion, hopefully the check of the auditor that the numbers are correct, or at least based upon the past actuals and things like that. What do you see the auditor's role in that budget process?
Well, I would hope that the manager would be getting his information that he's basing his historicals on from my system, from me.
Okay.
And so I would hope that I would be helping him. At the same time, I would be helping you because you're going to come at the budget from a different point of view than the manager is.
Okay. And what would you see as an auditor, your role in terms of how would you provide information to the council and how often?
As often as you want it and when in whatever format you want it.
Okay.
We use crystal reports heavily at Brookline. I've designed about 1,500 reports for the departments to use so that they can get specialized looks at their data. You know, that's part of my job.
If you saw a red flag or something that alerted you to
You would
numbers?
be hearing about it.
Okay, we wouldn't have to ask you?
No,
Okay.
no. I'm almost like the Marines. I'm the person who keeps you safe, so you don't have to lose sleep at night.
And that's what we're hoping for. In your cover letter, you talk about bond presentations. Brookline is a AAA bond rating.
Right.
What was your role in the presentation?
I work with Mr. Cirillo, who's the finance director and my boss. I provide him with a lot of data. We do a lot of theorizing about where the bonding agency is going to be coming from this year. As I said, we have a challenge in that we don't have the ability to get a lot of growth from new development because we can only go up in the air. There's almost no land available in Brookline. They're very excited this week because one of our tax takings was a 2,400 square foot lot that's pie-shaped that someone's going to be able to develop into a parking lot. And
Nice.
For that to be exciting in a town like Brookline is, it says something.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of development. And
Okay.
the bonding agencies don't look favorably on that. They want to see how you're going to get new growth. We recently added some staffing to our planning area that actually is working to try and develop a more friendly shopping area along Beacon Street, more user-friendly area along Beacon Street, in the hopes of retaining some of the vendors, the merchants that aren't Starbucks, that are the old-time grocery store that the people in the neighborhood could go to, or the old-time bakery or coffee shop. And so many of those have been gobbled up by the Starbucks. That's the way they're trying to do it, is attracting people from outside the community into the community to shop because it's a friendly experience.
Okay.
You've got your festivals that you do.
Right.
You've got some wonderful things that bring people into Lowell. And we don't have that.
What experience have you had as an auditor or comptroller, which essentially is the same thing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What experience have you had with school building programs and anything along those lines?
We're in the school building assistance program, just like you are.
Okay.
Unfortunately, 3 of our schools that are more than 17 years old have yet to be audited because we sent them off to the state and they sent them back. There were some issues with the SBAB as far as actually getting the audits done. And we're now working through our schools. We have an additional challenge in that one of the school's records were stored in the basement and a gray water pipe broke that probably was a brown water pipe instead of a gray water pipe over the boxes, and we didn't know about it for about 6 months. So we've got some records that are not auditable. And we're having to do some forensic accounting 3 systems ago on an old COBOL system that we sort of have hard copy of to try and convince the state that we actually did spend the money with the way we spent it. About 7 years ago, we instituted an imaging system in the comptroller's office, and so now every contract, every bill, every purchase order is scanned. And for the newer schools, we've actually been able to send a CD in to the auditors for them to review.
Okay, how long does it normally take for an audit to be completed on a school?
SPAB, they're supposed to be done within a year of completion, and as I said, we have some that are 17 years old.
All right.
There were schools that were completed before I started working for the town that are just starting to be audited through no fault of ours.
And last question, I think my time is just about up, is what experience do you have in conducting internal audits and audit controls?
Well, I was in public accounting for 4 years. I was there at probably the best time looking backwards to bring it forward. I was involved with the court-appointed equity funding fraud audit back in the early 70s in Los Angeles, and we poured over hundreds of thousands of insurance records. There was a pyramid scheme that was fairly famous. It was one of the first big fraud audits in last century. I was an internal auditor with ARA Services for a year and moved from that into operations. So in that capacity, I audited a number of service organizations throughout the country that at the time were owned by ARA Services.
Sorry, I'm getting the 0-minute sign they just made for me. Thank you very much, and congratulations on being here. Thank you.
Good evening, Judith.
Good evening.
How are you? You've been here quite a while, because
It's a lovely building.
I arrived at 25 past 5, and you were just coming off the elevator. So I want to thank you for your patience. And this council is blessed. We have 4 excellent candidates for this position. The town of Brookline, very affluent town.
Mm-hmm.
You have a population of 59,000 people
Right.
with a budget of $190 million a year. And your population is half the size of Lowell,
Mm-hmm.
but yet your budget is 2/3 of Lowell.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes we do rub nickels together to make ends meet and so forth, but how is the fiscal situation in Brookline?
It's becoming uncomfortable.
And what's the reason for that?
Healthcare costs is the primary. A lot of it's driven by personnel. Our healthcare costs, as with I think most communities in the country, have spiraled. There have been a number of initiatives to try and rein them in. They haven't been particularly effective, but I think it's not Brookline's fault. I think it's just the nature of.
I think that's the general climate throughout the Commonwealth and throughout the country.
Right.
It has to, and it has to be addressed. We have to address
Brookline
it.
also has a 50-50 partnership for its general fund with the schools. There is an agreement that is made by members of the school committee and the selectmen and departments that the funding will be split 50-50. And frequently that means that the town goes without things, the town side goes without things that they might need because the schools need money, and a lot of that is driven by the special education costs.
In the city of Lowell, we're proud of the fact that we built $250 million worth of new schools, certainly with the assistance of the state of Massachusetts. And there's an awful lot of accounting that goes along with that. Chapter 70 money, Chapter 90 money, the school reimbursements, the lunch programs and so forth. So you're all familiar with that.
Right, and looking at your road structure, you've got a more diverse road structure than we do, so that Chapter 90 money becomes very important to you. We're doing right now a state-town sharing on some work on Beacon Street along the T's. And it's been difficult because the state has insisted that we file with them, and so where we've been ready to file for our reimbursements in June, we've had to wait until July and August in some cases to get some of that money back.
In your resume, you indicated that Brookline is very proud of the fact they have a AAA bond rating.
Yes.
What was the bond rating in Brookline before you arrived there?
I think it was AA.
Double A?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you
I had nothing to do with the AAA rating, other
you
than
had
giving
some
good
input.
numbers. Yeah.
Take the credit. You have supervisory experience supervising people, because we have 8 dedicated employees in the auditing department. They do the payroll for the school department, the municipal side of government, and they work very hard at that, and you do have that experience.
I do, and I'll be working right along with them.
Okay. You have an excellent resume.
Thank
and
you.
the council did something that was unprecedented. We suspended the rules to allow you to be interviewed because of your resume.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And frankly, had I known how long it had, I was under the impression it was closing the day that I found out about it. Had I known it had been closed for a week, I would not have
Now,
submitted.
you must be a member of Mass Municipal Association.
I am.
And I believe that ad was in that.
As I said, we were right in the middle of getting ready for town meeting, and I wasn't doing any web surfing.
Okay. As I indicated, we're blessed with 4 excellent candidates. Certainly you are one of them. And it's a very important position in any city or town,
Yes.
as you well know. And we're going to do our best to, hire that right person. Would you be looking for a contract?
Yes.
Yeah. I believe we have a 3-year contract for all auditors, so forth. I don't have any further questions, Judith. I wish you the best, and thank you for your patience through this interview and being here so early. Thank you.
As usual, when you're sitting down here, most everything has been asked, but one of the, as has been said repeatedly, you have a great resume and tremendous experience. And as you said, the town of Brookline is very different from the city of, it's a town, it's a completely different form of government. But you're familiar with the Massachusetts systems.
Yes.
And so I take it you've looked at city versus town, and does it give you any pause as far as the differences between, the city of Lowell and our form of government and the type of financial conditions versus
Right.
the town?
Well, as I said, it presents more of a challenge, but I enjoy challenges. The financial statements are going to be prepared the same way as they're prepared in
Yeah, the reporting
Brookline.
requirements.
The financial system that you're using is similar. I'm not sure what your chart of accounts looks like, but, obviously it's being audited, so it has to be workable. We close our books on time.
When you say on time, what's that?
We normally hold open till the 15th of July to make sure that there are any late bills that are getting swept in, and then we spend a month and a half closing on, usually by September 1st, the auditors are in and they're normally out by the end of September.
And then when does Brookline normally set the tax rate?
I signed off on it 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
and a lot of that's driven, there are whole...
Other
Yeah.
factors. What role do you play in terms of, I understand that you don't work for the Board of Selectmen directly.
No, although they approve our contracts, our
Okay.
annual contracts.
And do you play any direct role in coming up with the free cash? You
I
make the
do the free
reportings
cash.
too.
No, I do the free cash certification. I do the Schedule A.
Okay.
I basically, in the 13 years that I've been there, I've got it down to a science, so I can do the Schedule A in a day. The free cash usually takes me another day and a half.
Have you
And-
looked at our Schedule A?
I have looked at the pieces. This weekend I went on to the state web.
Yeah.
It isn't complete, obviously. It doesn't have the actual department breakdowns, but it shows many similarities.
Okay. I'll just ask this. In your 13 years, have you ever had occasion to, well, you probably haven't, but let me withdraw that question. What was Brookline's free cash this year?
It's going to be 4.9 million.
And is that high, low?
That's down. That's
Okay.
down almost $3 million. And a lot of that has to do with the timing of our expenditures for what we call special warrant article cap. We have two types of capital. We have capital that's bonded, and we have capital that's financed by our general fund, by our revenues. The special warrant article expenditures that we're doing now, in some cases, relate to appropriations from 9 years ago. And what we've been really doing is pushing the departments to use the old monies first. And that has had an effect on our free cash.
Okay. What about things like bills, for instance, you know, let me talk about like utility bills, energy costs, and so forth in departments. In your experience, have you had those bills paid out of a different fiscal year than what they were incurred in, or
Absolutely
I mean,
unless there is a purchase order outstanding for them, absolutely not. They
Okay.
have to go to town meeting for anything that, if a bill comes in after that 15th cutoff, when we cut off the books for the year, and they haven't got a purchase order for it, they have to go to town meeting and get permission to
so
spend
that would be
that
a
money.
bad bill, or
It would be a bill that someone forgot. I have some departments that it's been a challenge to get them to put in purchase orders.
So let me just, as a hypothetical, let's say the manager had a different philosophy and said, pay him in the next fiscal
I
year.
can't.
You wouldn't do it?
I can't.
Okay, and you would let the council know that,
Yes, I
right?
would.
Okay.
And by the same token, if you asked me to do it, I would
Right.
have to say I can't.
Okay,
As I said, we're like the Marines.
all right.
You may not like
I
us
like
all
to
the-
hear that,
Yeah,
so,
you may not like us all the time, but we're doing what's best.
Okay. And so, and it's already been asked, but the auditor's a check and balance on the manager in a way.
Yes.
And in our form of government, and I assume perhaps where you are as well. But you wouldn't have a problem taking charge and letting the council know and the manager know, this can't be done.
No, not at all.
Okay.
I
Have you had to do that?
Not frequently, but I've had to occasionally go to the 6th floor and discuss things with our town administrator.
Okay. You know, we get to ask you the questions, and you come here and you sit around all night, and I have a minute left. I'm just going to, open it up and say, is there something that you wanted, that you haven't been asked, that you wish you had an opportunity to tell us, just anything?
I think that I've had a fairly broad spectrum of questions this evening.
Okay. And I'll leave it at that, because it would take too long. I'll yield to my colleague. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. What would you consider a clean audit?
A clean audit? Well, it's one where there's no surprises at the end of the year, where we're able to get our financial statements done, to have all of the checks and balances be in checks and balances, all of our funds in balance, Brookline has had its share of internal control issues that have required side forensic audits. We've had issues around school spending at the individual school level. And, it's always painful to find those things.
Right. And do you usually try to clear those up on an annual basis? I mean, are they recurring after you get your management letter? Do you work with the auditor to review the draft, the draft management letter before it goes out?
Yeah. And our
okay.
management
So
letters
just-
have been fairly clean.
and
They're
you-
available on the web. You can go out to the Town of Brookline's webpage, and we have the last 4 or 5 years of full financials, the single audit, and the management letter posted for people to review.
When you're doing your free cash, have you run into, deficits in certain funds that?
Yeah.
And how do you? What has DOR said to you about about clearing them up, or will they let you carry it over, or, what's the
Well, you
cutoff?
always get hit for those deficits.
Right.
And if they see a continuing deficit, it's probably going to appear as a management letter. One of our management letters for the past couple of years has been the school lunch program was running a deficit, and while they've been chipping away at the deficit, they haven't been able to bring it down as quickly as they had hoped. So that has been a management letter point, I believe, the last 3 years.
Well, it seems to be recurring, I think, milk and school lunch, because it's
Yeah.
funded from the federal government, we all seem to carry the deficit, but,
Right. But we also have other funds that may, from time to time, because of timing, end up with a deficit. We have a number of scholarship funds that are annually funded, and frequently the donor's payment for the scholarship that was given in May doesn't come in until August, and that becomes a deficit, which we end up having to eat in the free cash. Our free cash funds are CIP. 5% of our free cash goes against CIP annually.
oh,
So
Is
that
that-
becomes
is that a
money
lo-
that the departments can put in for that they want to spend for special projects of a capital nature. So it's always important for us to keep our free cash as high as we can.
does Brookline have its own pension system, retirement system?
Yes, we do. I'm the ex officio member on that.
You are, and what is your unfunded liability? Do you have a target date for?
Yeah, we're 16 years away from full funding, should the market continue on its happy little pace that it's, particularly the past 2 quarters have been very good for us.
How many fund managers do you have?
8.
8. And could you tell me what the, what's your pension system, what the entire net worth is?
I believe it's at 210 right now.
Okay. We haven't heard about GASB 45 yet. Council Broderick was asking about
One
it
of my
tonight.
favorite topics. Right up there with GASB 43.
43 and 34. I
yeah.
understand. I understand that communities are looking at have to look at 34, but it does. And I understand it does play into the bond rating and
Right.
things like that, but it doesn't seem to make much sense considering the investment that communities have to make. But can you tell us about 45 and sort of plays? I think you sort of answered it. You're looking at 16 years out till you have a fully funded.
Right.
pension system.
And we actually have been putting money aside, not much. We've got about $4 million in our post-retirement benefits fund. As free cash has been good to us, we've been able to put some money into our retirement rainy day fund, so to speak. But it's nowhere near. I think that by the time we're ready to start funding it, we're probably going to be looking at about $1 billion.
In your 13 years in Brookline, have you ever had or ever heard of negative free cash or borrowing free cash against the next year?
The year before I started, there was a very small negative free cash.
It was negative, but you didn't borrow against future.
No.
Future. Have you ever heard of that?
Not at Brookline.
Well, and we just learned of it this year that not only did DOR allow it for once, they allowed it a second time against this year. It's free cash.
I have never heard of that.
Okay. Neither have.
I mean, I don't talk to every community in the state, but I've never heard of that.
Okay, I think you've answered questions that I have, and there are other questions to follow, so I will relinquish the floor, and I thank you for your answers.
Bonsoir et bienvenue.
Oh, merci.
I am not going to dwell on what you know and what you've done because your resume is quite clear as to your qualifications and the application of those qualifications as a controller, which suggests to me that the same thing used here as the auditor would serve us very well.
Absolutely.
Do you have a contract with Brookline?
We have one-year contracts. The town administrator and the legal counsel are the only 2 that have longer than 1-year contracts.
In Lowell, they're terms. In other words, there are 3-year terms for the auditor that works with the city council,
Yes.
so that's better than
And I
any
think that's
contract.
common in the city environment also.
I'm very interested in your analogy of the Marines, particularly You wouldn't be bashful about being a drill sergeant if our manager strayed away from what is good, sound management practice, all right?
No.
So that if all of a sudden you participate in a team, which I'm sure the auditor does, along with the chief financial officer and the manager, to put the finances of the city together, and you saw something that you didn't think was appropriate, you wouldn't be convinced to overlook it.
I'm not shy.
Okay. Because I think it's important that the auditor's position, in reality and in practice, is an independent position,
Absolutely.
answerable to the city council.
Yes.
And many times that doesn't take place because of the relationships that develops between management and the auditor. And that sometimes falls by the wayside when it comes to informing the city council that management, whether it's the city manager, town manager, is pursuing a fiscal policy that is not appropriate. You sound to me, based on the answers you've given to everybody tonight, that that's not something that you would fall into.
No. No,
It's very important for cities like Lowell to have that independent
right.
relationship, part of the team, but however, always recognizing what the job is and who, quote, the auditor works for.
Right.
And as long as you clearly understand that, your resume speaks for itself. But I just wanted to extract from you very publicly how you feel about that particular responsibility.
Well, as an auditor, I'm independent. I have to be independent.
Right.
I'm used to saying no. I'm used to trying to help find a creative, legal, appropriate way to do something if, in fact, someone's coming to me with something that just isn't going to work. It's not going to be right. But I have no problem saying no.
Would you consider moving Lowell if you received the position? Especially where it's such a beautiful, wonderful,
It
diverse
is.
city.
It is.
It's not a commitment. I'm just asking
no.
if you would consider it.
I would consider it. It would be a hard decision
Yeah.
because I'm very happy where I am in Haverhill. I live out in the country in Haverhill.
So I take it Brookline does not have a residency requirement?
No.
Because you were there 12 years while living in Haverhill. By
Right.
the way, my dad was born in Haverhill. That's why I knew how to say bonsoir to bienvenue. I don't have any more questions because as far as I'm concerned, your qualifications on the resume speaks for itself in terms of being able to do this job. And I just wanted to extract from you the importance of that job as it relates to the overall fiscal responsibility of the city, and particularly the councils who are elected to make sure that's carried out.
Right.
So that's all I have to say.
Good evening, Judith.
Hello.
I'm Rita Mercia, but we're not related.
Okay.
That's okay. You won't get us mixed up. I'm the one with all the hair. But I liked your analogy comparing yourself to a Marine. I really did. I'm kind of like that too, in that you can't help saying no if you feel the need. The principle, it's the principle. I actually said no to you. I want you to know that. I'll be up front because I feel we have rules to follow. Having said that, I like your honesty, and there's no doubt about the fact that you're very well qualified. And I like the way that you explained it, that you thought that the deadline was the day that you submitted your resume. That I can understand. And you said that if you knew that it was a week and a half, you wouldn't have submitted.
No.
And I admire you for saying that, so you can see where I'm coming from, because you have to send in your paperwork in a timely fashion to the Department of Revenue. And I'm a stickler for being on time and being, up front, and if we have rules and laws, we have to apply, and we have to stick to it. So I like your stick-to-itiveness. Having said that, I am impressed with your resume, and sometimes things happen indirectly for the best, you know what I mean? And so I'm glad to have met you, and I liked your answers. I really don't have any questions. Everybody kind of asked them. And you're not a CPA, right?
No, I'm not.
You're not. It's not required.
No.
So if you become the city auditor, what is the first order of business that you would attend to?
It would be looking at the budget and the chart of accounts, looking at the internal controls within the town and the schools, really getting a feel for how your books work, because every town's books work a little differently. Everybody's chart of accounts, while they're close to what DOR wants them to be, no one is 100% because everyone has different circumstances.
Right.
And it would really be getting a real handle on the day-to-day accounting.
What is the most challenging part of being an auditor?
Getting things in on time from the departments, making sure that they're appropriately approved, making sure that the reports that come out make sense to the person who's using them. Three of you could ask for the same data, but you want to see it in different ways, and I have to make sure that when I give each of you the data, it's the same data, but it's reflected in the way that you want them.
And you would communicate with us in a timely fashion if you felt that there was a urgent need that we should know. I would hope that you would come to this council in the form of an email or communication. Communication is very
Right.
important. You understand as well that you would, if you are chosen, you would attend Tuesday city council meetings every Tuesday?
Yes.
Did you know that?
Yes.
Did you do that in Brookline?
I frequently am there because I'm frequently having questions asked.
Okay.
And then the advisory committee meets on Wednesday nights, and so I'm frequently answering questions for them.
Okay, I wish you the best of luck. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Good evening, Judith, and welcome.
Good evening.
Very nice to meet you. My initial comment will be framework within the context that we are conducting very serious business tonight for the people of our community. But let me state that you and I now stand between dinner from my colleagues and yourself. So
Okay.
I'll try to be brief because a lot of the questions were already asked. But I do want to stress the fact that that the auditor's position is obviously key, putting together financial statements, putting together budgets. A statement that I don't ever want to hear out of any auditor's mouth is that I haven't participated or I don't know the answer to that, because unfortunately we find ourselves here, we find ourselves with a negative $2 million free cash because I don't think the communication was what it should have been. It wasn't appropriate for the last for the last auditor,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that was unfortunate. And I'm hopeful that whoever ends up filling the position going forward will find him or herself in a position where that won't happen. I think you've made it quite clear to this council tonight that you won't allow that to happen. So I'm very happy to hear that. So, what internal controls do you think are so vitally important in an auditor's office that are actually in the process that needs to be in place?
Well, you need to be sure that first your expenditures are within the appropriation limits, that there's no slide, gee, we've still got money left in supplies, but I really need to have this consultant come in, so I'm going to pay that out of supplies. Depending on how your budget is done, that becomes very important. In Brookline, the schools have a bottom line budget, the library has a bottom line budget, and the rest of the departments are on appropriation unit budgets. So for the finance department, for assessors and treasurer, collector, and comptroller, all of us share the supplies money. And so not only do I have to be sure that overall in that appropriation unit it's not being overspent, but that someone isn't tiptoeing into someone else's budget without that person knowing it, because it can happen. As far as cash controls, you want to have a good separation so that the person who's handling the cash isn't the person who's making the deposit, and also isn't a person who can do accounts payable, because they can very nicely take the money in, either not deposit it, or have a check made out to themselves. And so those are the types of internal controls in cash that are important.
Okay.
You want to be sure that that there's a good separation between what the collector does and what the assessor does. You want to be sure that in DPW, that they're spending, because there's so much capital usually tied up within DPW in the roads projects and the parks projects, that there's no slippage there. If you've got capital projects that are bonded for a school building and there's a surplus, you want to make sure you get the appropriate approvals before that surplus gets applied potentially against another building. You don't want to have slop between the buildings.
What do you think about the size of the staff? It's been mentioned that we have 8 dedicated employees in the auditor's office. I mean, again, we're a city with a budget of $295 million with an audit staff,
Right.
auditor staff of 8.
I have a staff of 6, and one of those people is just doing imaging. All they're doing is scanning for.
You do the school side as well? Do you do the?
We do the school side also,
You do,
yes.
okay.
When payroll used to be under my bailiwick, and as we got more involved with Munis, there was some free capacity on the treasurer collector side, and so payroll was, 2 years ago, was moved over to the treasurer collector, but I still have to review everything. We had one person in the town and 2 people in schools doing the payroll for those 2 organizations.
Okay. One final question. What do you see the auditor's role working with the third-party audit firm, with the outside audit firm that comes in on a annual basis?
We should not be adversarial, but we should not be that collegial.
Okay.
They have to be independent of us. They can't be doing consulting for us. They can't be saying, and if they ever did, I would immediately recommend that we change auditors, but well, we'll let that slide this year. In the management letter, depending on what the point is, sometimes there is give and take, and I have seen that in every organization I have been with. Frequently, it's an issue that is not, it's never an issue that's a major finding issue, but it may be more of a efficiency issue, where there may be discussions about whether that point should be included or not, whether it's really appropriate or not.
Okay. Okay.
And I can't promise you that I will never say, I don't know, but I will always follow it with, but I will find out immediately and report back to you. So I'm not omniscient. I can't know what's going on, particularly in a city like Lowell. I can't know what's going on in every single department, every minute of the day. But I can find out.
Great. Well, again, thank you very much. I certainly enjoyed your interview. Thank you. And thank you for your patience.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Halpin. If there are any concluding remarks you'd like to make, we'd be happy to hear them. If you think you've said it all, that's fine too.
I think I've said it all. You've been very thorough in your questioning and very patient, considering you haven't had supper yet. And I want to thank you for your time and for allowing me to interview with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just, we do have a vote scheduled next week, so
Okay.
we'll be informing you some point next week.
Thank you very much.
I think we need to formally adjourn the meeting, so motion to adjourn by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Donahue. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The meeting stands adjourned.